It's a high quality podcast action podcast. I'm John,
And I'm Nick.
and good God, it's the day after midterm elections in the US.
Oh, yeah. And what an election it was.
What an election is a bit of an understatement,
The
but
election that gave people an erection.
or maybe completely defeated the impetus for an erection
Okay, be that way.
in certain individuals.
Okay, that's fine.
I
There
don't know,
was there was there's good, there's some
good
bad,
and
and
some
there
ugly.
was some very ugly.
Yeah,
Some foreshadowing about how this episode will go. But let's start with your beer.
good idea. I'm already halfway through it.
Whoa, now. Have you just gotten halfway through it in the minute since we started?
Yes.
Wow. So this may be the first 5 Stein beer that you've had.
No,
Oh,
but
spoiler alert.
it's one of those it's one of those podcasts after a day of seeing all of the election results come in and things of that nature to just enjoy a nice full pint of a this week New England IPA or NEIPA if you're into abbreviations. Further abbreviations, I should say.
Nipa.
So
Nipa.
NEIPA, partly because I'm in the northeastern quadrant of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
This beer is from the Industrial Arts Brewing Company, which is brewed and canned in Garnerville, New York. I don't know where that is,
I
but my
got
guess
you, fam. Let
is
me look this up.
that it's probably not in New York City, or maybe it is, and it's just some name of a smaller subsidiary of the boroughs that I'm not
Garnerville,
familiar with.
West Haverstraw, New York.
Sure.
It's along the Hudson River.
Makes sense.
There's not really anything notable that's close by. I
Well,
would say that it is significantly
It's pretty
further.
close to New York City.
It's significantly further up the Hudson River.
Yeah.
But yeah,
but
if you do the 5 mile indicator in Google Maps, you can actually see both downtown New York and Garnerville.
what do you know?
How about that? Anyway,
May as well be New York City. Close
Sure.
enough for me anyway.
sure.
Compared to where I live. But the New England IPA style, if you're not familiar, is a hazier IPA that is pithy, if you're familiar with the term.
Mm, not no,
Not
kinda. I don't think I have the right definition for it.
so a pith can either be those weird safari hats that old
Yes.
British gents wear in every movie ever.
Yes, that is
Or-
not it. I take it.
Pith can be the white, non-delicious part of an orange or grapefruit or other citrus fruits that
Ah.
separate the actual fruity bits that you eat.
I see.
So what that basically means is it's got a little bit of bitterness to it
An
kind
IPA,
of from that,
bitter.
and it's a little hazy and a little kind of like you're drinking a pulpy beer, but it doesn't have pulp in it. However, the flavors include notes of grapefruit, melon, and a little bit of hop bitterness. It also doesn't have as much body or mouthfeel, kind of a substantial mouthfeel. It's a little lacking in that department. But overall, it definitely hits notes of the grapefruit and melon really well out of the IPAs that I've had in the past, and even fruit beers that I've had in the past. It has a reasonable flavor profile for those two citrus fruits that are often hard to find in some beers. So I gave it a nice 3.75 out of 5, and we'll continue drinking it as the night goes on.
Decent, very decent.
Decent indeed.
All right, the meat
I
of
want to
the.
start with the ugly, the good, or the bad.
Well, let's go in the order that the movie did. So we'll start with the good.
All right, so we're gonna start uplifting and end in the shitter.
Elections, the good. Obviously, the positive results will follow, or at least what we view as the positive results.
Well, arguably the most positive for most people.
Right. There's some good points, some bad points.
Yeah.
First of all, the big one, Democrats won the majority in the House.
Yep.
So, they're getting their subpoena pens ready. Maxine Waters, I believe, said in her victory speech, "Hey, Trump, who's low IQ now?" She didn't really say that, obviously. I am making that up. But she, among others, now have subpoena power to investigate all the items that they've been writing it down because the Democrats have made a list and they're checking it twice.
Probably
And
thrice.
yes, and Trump knows this. He tweeted this morning a rather tough, trying to sound like a tough guy that he does.
Mm-hmm.
He said, if the Democrats think they are going to waste taxpayer money investigating us at the House level, then we will likewise be forced to consider investigating them for all the leaks of classified information and much else at the Senate level. Two can play that game. And once again, the capitalization of words is completely random, and the grammar is a little off.
Non-existent.
First, my response to that is he's one to talk about wasting taxpayer money with all those trips to his own properties he's taken nearly every weekend since he's been president. And second, I'm not sure what he thinks that's going to do. Investigate, because they're not doing anything wrong. Well, I'm just assuming that's not, they're not going to do anything wrong in these investigations. So investigate away, idiot.
Some, if we were to play devil's advocate, could say that you could come up with so-and-so leaking some classified information, but not necessarily have any proof, which is essentially what the majority of Republicans who have backed Trump have kind of been doing. Everything that they have tried to bring to the forefront of in terms of classified information or subpoenaing any kind of Democrats about has died, fizzled very quickly.
I think it's been the biggest positive so far is that Trump no longer has the House to protect him anymore.
Yes.
He no longer has a Devin Nunes to run to the White House and be like, Mr. Trump, they have subpoenas on you. Like he did
Devin
2 years
Nunes
ago.
Like the short round of the House, or was?
He was part of the intelligence committee.
Right.
And he shadily ran to the White House during one of their hearings during the what do you call it? Oh, I cannot remember. I think it was concerning the Russia investigation. Because I thought it was about that FBI agent or whatever that had been caught sending anti-Trump texts, but no, this was before that.
No, I'm pretty sure it was the Russia investigation, something pertaining to that. But
So,
I just imagine him as a small, short round-esque person.
He kind of is. He just has that look to him,
Dr. Jones.
Um,
Anyway, moving on.
The Democrats flipped Nevada Senator Dean Heller's seat. That was the one seat they were able to flip.
Yep.
He lost to Jackie Rosen. The up in the air stuff right now, Mississippi will have a runoff election between Mike Espy, the Democrat, and current Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith. Florida has still not been called between Bill Nelson and Rick Scott, and it seems like there's going to be a recount, and we all know how Florida recounts go.
Yeah.
And I guess you can count this as a flip, although it hasn't been called yet. Jeff Flake's seat in Arizona is between Kristen Sinema. I'm just going to guess that's how that's pronounced. It's spelled
Cinema?
like... Maybe it's like the word cinema but with an S. So I don't know if it's like cinema. I can think of a number of ways, but anyway.
Potato, who
And
knows?
yes, and her Republican rival, Martha McSally, John Tester, was in a close race that had not been initially called earlier in the day, but he did end up keeping his seat, beating his competitor, Matt Rosendale. So that's where we are with the Senate. The governorships were more interesting because Republicans did not gain any or flip any governorships. They either just maintained them, like Nebraska did, reelecting Pete I buy illegal lethal injection drugs from India Ricketts.
Pete, I look like a walking penis, Ricketts.
Yeah. Or Democrats flipped the governorships. In total, 7 governors were flipped to the Democratic side and forced it out to me. Number 1, Scott Walker lost.
Nope.
Oh, hey, maybe you shouldn't have been so anti-union, anti-education. I don't know. That was one of the main reasons he did so poorly in the Republican primaries 2 years ago. Anyway, he lost to Tony Evers, who I believe was involved in the Wisconsin Department of Education in some fashion. Continuing on.
I think one of the best parts of Scott Walker's loss is the fact that he can't call for a recount because of the law that he put into place to prevent that.
Oh, it makes it so much better.
It's poetic justice.
Oh, so funny. Number 2, Laura Kelly beat her Republican rival Chris Kobach in Kansas. Sam Brownback's term obviously running out.
Yep.
Also, I think for the past year he's been some sort of ambassador, an agricultural ambassador to, I do not remember the country he was appointed to, but he was doing that for the past year, and someone had been filling in for his last term. It was not Chris Kobach, it was a different person. But either way, Kansas now has a Democratic governor, if you can believe that. Gretchen Whitmer won over Bill Shute in Michigan, so Michigan now has a Democratic governor. And Jared Polis, Democrat, won over Republican Walker Stapleton in Colorado. Now, Polis winning is not shocking, but I bring him up because he is the first openly gay person to be elected as a governor in the United States. So very cool. That is among other firsts that happened this election cycle.
We're not done yet.
No.
And thankfully so, I might add.
Right. Additional firsts. This is the most women in the history of the U.S. to be elected to the U.S. House.
Woo!
We've never had more. I still think we can add a lot more, to be honest.
We need more.
I didn't write down the freaking number because I'm not as
depressing.
Smart. Yes, but I should have. It's not as high as you may imagine or hope for, but it's progress. That's what we need. The first Native American Congress women were elected: Sharice Davids of Kansas and Deborah Holland of New Mexico, both Democrats. Our first Muslim Congresswomen, one of which is now my representative, Ilhan Omar of Minnesota, and Rashida Tlaib of Michigan, both Democrats. Noticing a slight theme here. First Latina Congresswomen from Texas, Democrats, Sylvia Garcia and Veronica Escobar. The first lesbian mom in Congress, Minnesota Democrat Angie Craig, whose campaign I did donate to. You're welcome, Angie. Very glad that you're now part of the Minnesota Democrat team in the House. Massachusetts' first black member of the House, Democrat Ayanna Pressley. Tennessee's first female senator, Republican Marsha Blackburn. Arizona's first female senator, Democrat Kristen Sinema, or Republican Martha McSally. Either way, whoever wins will be the first female senator for Arizona. Connecticut's first black woman sent to Congress, Democrat Jahana Hayes. South Dakota's first female governor, Republican Kristi Noem. And Maine's first female governor, Democrat Janet Mills. All the firsts that happened in this election cycle.
mild round of applause for the fact that more women are getting involved in politics, or at least being allowed to be involved in politics.
Aside from Polis, that list is entirely all women,
Yep.
which tells you a lot about where we are. This is all the first time this stuff has been happening. And it's 2018. Women have had the right to vote and run for office for approaching 150 years.
Yep.
And we're still not quite there to the high representation we were hoping for.
We're making progress slowly,
Now,
but surely.
now before we go to the bad, here's some of these state laws that pass in various states that I found to be positive. The big one being in Florida on issue 4. The voting rights for convicted felons has been restored in Florida, which is could be a huge deal for the electorate of Florida, who's always had these close elections, this year being no different. Florida has 1.4 convicted felons who are obviously not in prison anymore.
1.4 million?
1.4 million.
Okay. I heard 1.4.
Oh. Well,
Florida
sounds like a
has-
you problem.
Florida has 1.5 convicted felons who are not in prison anymore.
Well, the important
These
part is
elections are gonna go crazy, go nuts.
the important part is you, the
1.5
listener,
Extra
heard.
votes.
You, the listener, heard 1.4 million, and that's all that matters.
Sure. Anyway, moving on.
Right. Michigan has legalized recreational marijuana for anyone over the age of 21. Congratulations. Arkansas will raise their minimum wage to $11 by 2021, and Missouri raises its minimum wage to $12 by 2023. I would say those are little victories, not necessarily insignificant as they sound, but hey, if those two states are willing to raise their minimum wage to that high, then maybe there's hope, or maybe I'm reading too much into it. You be the judge.
We'll see. Only time will tell.
Right. 3 states voted to expand Medicaid: Idaho, our home state, Nebraska, and Utah. It will remain to be seen if the legislature and governor of Nebraska will actually, expand Medicaid.
Odds are not looking good for that because,
Yeah.
lovely Republican Deb Fisher and Pete Ricketts and Jeff Fortenberry.
Fortenberry.
Yep. Fortenberry.
They all voted to pass it. I remember last year when Maine voted on the same issue and passed Medicaid expansion, their governor refused to enact it.
Yeah.
Like, this is the will of the people here. Okay? You had your chance. You blew it. We decided we're doing it. Now do it.
Yeah. If only.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the overall Republican opinion of Medicaid and Medicare are not great.
No, they have this and have convinced people of this view that, if we give, government provided health care to poor people, then that doesn't incentivize them to start working, which is complete bullcrap. First of all, you can be working and still receive Medicaid, which is screwed up that can actually happen, but it does. There are people who do work full-time or part-time who have Medicaid, who have to use food stamps, who have some form of welfare. And that's the real problem. It's not like they're making a whole lot of money off the government by being lazy. They're just flat out not making enough money. Oh, well, they should better themselves. Yeah. What a wonderful anecdotal solution that is.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on.
Of course, through all of that, Republicans tend to demonize the usage of food stamps and welfare.
It's just terrible. Moving on. Yeah. Oregon voted no on repealing the state's sanctuary state law. A number of states passed amendments to their constitutions similar to Marcy's law that passed in 2008 in California. It's rather lengthy and has a lot of things that it covers, namely I think it's most well known for giving more victims legal rights, when it comes to physical and sexual assault cases. So I'll have to task you with homework to read up on everything that it states. Colorado voted yes to redistrict its congressional districts and state house and Senate districts. Florida, already covered that one. Maryland will allow same-day voter registration. Michigan will redraw the state's congressional and legislative districts. Michigan will also add straight ticket voting, automatic voter registration, same-day voter registration, and no excuse absentee voting to the Michigan Constitution. Nevada will also have automatic voter registration. Already covered weed. Washington affirmed the implementation restrictions on the purchase and ownership of firearms, including raising the minimum age to purchase a gun to 21. Massachusetts will now prohibit discrimination based on gender identity in public places. However, not everything on the state ballots was good, though. And that, unless you have anything else to add to the good, will lead us to the bad.
I think we should note just once more about the good, how although Democrats did not produce this huge blue wave of taking over the Senate and the House by a vast majority, there were definitely steps in the right direction for women and diversity through different religious backgrounds, people of color, different sexualities, and all of the like of those, kind of the spectrum of that, to push the general makeup of Congress in a more diverse direction that is reflective of the entirety of the country, as opposed to being old white men.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's something to note and applaud, be proud of.
Yes.
That we're finally seeing these things happen in Congress that arguably should have happened decades ago.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Minnesota has, this election cycle, elected, I would say, aside from a few House seats, most of them have been Democrats. The DFL party, as it's known as up here.
Yeah.
Our governor is a DFL member. Keith Ellison won Attorney General. Amy Klobuchar and Tina Smith both won re-election. Although Tina Smith will just serve out the final years of Al Franken's term. Our Secretary of State, State Auditor, all DFL. Majority of the Minnesota House, DFL. The Senate is still Republican majority, though. So we won't be able to do as much as we may hope for. But in large part, it's nice to have more, to, like you said, see more representation, you know? This 5th district that I live in has a fairly large immigrant population. Ilhan Omar was a Somali refugee who did gain her naturalized citizenship. So it was really neat to see someone who actually does represent, just demographically, the district that she is a part of. You know, she wears a hijab. That's something you don't see in a lot of elected positions. And I think
that the main takeaway from this is someone like you mentioned, this representative who is a naturalized citizen who is now leading the country, or leading that, at least her, for that region in a particular state of the country, is contributing as a leader for the country, is arguably the best thing about what we saw yesterday, and now the results coming back in for individuals who have been elected and are diverse, is they are the best that the country has to offer, bar none. I mean,
amen.
Women and diverse individuals coming in to help lead a country that has been suffering from religious and racial issues for decades, and none of these white men, old white men, young white men, doesn't matter. I'm a white man, you're a white man.
Right.
You know, we've had our time and we still have our place to help, but it's more about these underrepresented people who are and have been for years kind of in the background and deserve to have a representation in Congress that will positively reinforce and reflect their values and others who may not be the exact same demographic, but will certainly align with the values that these individuals who have been elected to represent individuals of those particular demographics effectively. That's that's the thing that I think fills me with the most pride as an American out of any of this, you know.
I agree completely.
So on that extremely positive note, let's move to the bad.
The bad. The Senate did not go so well.
Nope.
Republicans flipped 3 now formerly held Democratic seats. In Indiana, Joe Donnelly lost to Mike Braun. Claire McCaskill lost to Josh Hawley in Missouri. And Heidi Heitkamp lost to Kevin Kramer in North Dakota. All those states went for Donald Trump in 2016 in significant margins. So each of those Republican candidates took that to their advantage, and they sucked up to Trump. Trump flew to their states for rallies, and he pulled his pants down, revealed his tiny mushroom-like dick, and said, if you want to be in the Senate, you must. And then they went, yeah, we know. Let's just get this over with. So they all spouted the same Trump rhetoric about immigration and his economic successes, despite,
And how large his hands are.
Yes, and despite, tariffs harming farmers and stuff. No big deal right there. Ted Cruz did the same thing, but we'll talk about him more in the ugly when we get to it.
Because that's where he definitely belongs.
Yes, he too nuzzled up to that Trump D, and it unfortunately paid off for him.
Damn Zodiac killer.
Yes, we'll also talk about Florida in the ugly as well.
Yeah.
Our home state has once again stayed completely red.
Go figure.
Deb Fischer won re-election. Jeff Fartenberry from our home district won as well.
I still love that. Just as an aside, because I'm sure a lot of people who may be listening aren't familiar with the background of the Fartenberry incident.
I think they might be.
Maybe. It did make national news, but just in case, people avoid politics, I wouldn't imagine they do if they listen to this, but just in case, because it's hilarious. Large campaign sign of Jeff Fortenberry's in Nebraska was creatively vandalized.
No.
I wouldn't even call it vandalized.
It wasn't vandalized. It was more of a...
It was artistic expression.
It was an unapproved improvement or renovation of the sign. Yeah, yes. We'll go with that.
So large googly eyes were applied to Jeff Fortenberry, and the sign itself was changed from Jeff Fortenberry to Jeff Fartenberry, and I believe the bottom of the sign had something else done to it as well.
So it said like strong like something, and then at the end, strong, the last word had the word odor.
So it was strong families, strong communities, strong odor.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I heavily approve because it's hilarious.
It makes me laugh just thinking about it.
This is the type of shit that we used to do in high school and myself even in college, where you'd erase shit on the board so it would say something completely stupid.
It's like, those did you ever read Captain Underpants?
Oh yeah.
Those the two main characters would rearrange the letters on the school sign to spell something naughty.
Yep. Same kind of thing.
Reminds me of.
It's been going on for years. It's childish humor that is still fantastic, even for grown-ass men and adults. And a university professor at the University of Nebraska
Oh yeah, that was fucked up.
liked a picture of this particular sign on Facebook, and then Jeff Fortenberry's chief of staff, I
Mm-hmm.
think, went about calling him and harassing him about how they were going to indict him for liking a post on Facebook,
Well, you want to talk about thin-skinned?
which is just absolutely ridiculous. And I, everybody got a good chuckle out of it, and I think it made national news, at least in a certain amount of publicity. But
I mean, what? It's such a wussy, thin-skinned reaction to have to something like that. You know?
such an overreaction.
Oh, they vandalized. They
High school
vandalized a
students.
sign. What whoop de fucking do? You know? If you're gonna have someone, you know, have a negative outward reaction to your campaign, do you want to have some nut job go out and shoot people, or just deface a sign? You know? I
Would
know what I
prefer
would rather
strong
do.
odor on a sign about Jeff Fartenberry to another mass shooting anywhere.
Oh man.
Anyway, aside finished.
Don Bacon of the second district, which is it's Omaha, pretty much, if you want to think of it that way.
It is literally just Omaha.
Yeah. And then Adrian Smith won the western portion where most of the farms are in Nebraska.
So for anyone not familiar with the layout of Nebraska in terms of who votes red and who votes blue, there are a total of 2 counties that go primarily blue every time, and they are Lancaster and Dodge, and they have the 2 largest cities in the state, Lincoln and Omaha.
This is Douglas County, and there's no Dodge County, is there?
There is a Dodge County.
But that's not where Omaha is.
You're right.
Douglas County. Dodge is a street in Omaha.
Well, they both start with D. Don't mind me. I'm just drinking my beer.
Close. Okay, yeah, keep doing that. All right.
Moving
I'll
on.
move forward. Some of the state level votes, which is what I think is where the most bad was. Gosh, these are some of the state votes I thought absolutely sucked on a new level, or maybe the same level.
Lay it on me.
Montana voted no on Medicaid expansion, and I partially think that's because attached to that issue was an increase in tobacco taxes. Cannot confirm nor deny. Ohio issue 1 was voted no on. Ohio issue 1, if you voted yes, supports a criminal reform package that includes reducing offenses related to drug possession and use to misdemeanors, creating a sentence credits program for inmates, and requiring the state to spend savings from inmate reduction on crime victim and rehabilitation programs. So, you know, not condemning drug users to prison because, you know, most of them are actually sick, and sick people don't get good by going to prison. If you have cancer, you don't get cured by going to prison.
Nope.
So opponents to this is so unbelievably stupid. Opponents raise concerns that the impact of removing the threat of jail time as a punishment would have on Ohio's drug courts. So obviously the threat of punishment, I don't know if you know this, means jack shit to a drug addict. There are still plenty of drug addicts despite the threat of going to jail. So that is a stupid freaking argument. And might I add, it wasn't even close either. I think the percent on the issue, I have it somewhere here. I will find it by gosh.
My guess is it's
It
90s.
was 63% no, 37% yes.
Not as split as I would have thought, but
No. I was somewhat baffled by this, not knowing exactly what else was in the bill. But from the summaries I read, it sounded, like a logical progressive thing to do. But I guess Ohio wasn't ready for that, as evidence that they voted for a Republican governor, which is a whole nother problem that I no longer have to have since I don't live there anymore. Woohoo!
Woo!
Arkansas issue 2 was voted for, in favor of. This supports requiring individuals to present valid photo ID to cast in person and absentee ballots. North Carolina also passed a voter ID measure. North Dakota, for some reason, will clarify that only U.S. citizens can vote in federal, state, and local elections in North Dakota. I didn't know that that was such a problem they were having in North Dakota. I have my suspicions that it really isn't a problem in North Dakota.
Probably not. But neither of us live there, so meh.
Alabama, being the progressive state it is,
Roll Tide,
passed Amendment 2 that supports recognizing and supporting the sanctity of unborn life and rights of unborn children. And West Virginia passed Amendment 1, which states that nothing in the West Virginia Constitution secures or protects a right to abortion or requires funding the procedure. Someone should tell these two states that Roe v. Wade is still the law, and both of those are pretty much just symbolic. The other fun super Alabama thing that was passed was Amendment 1, a law about letting the Ten Commandments be displayed on public property, which, much like their abortion bill, goes against, laws such as, separation of church and state.
maybe.
Finally, North Dakota voted no on legalizing the recreational use and possession of marijuana for people 21 years and over, as well as automatically expunging individuals previously convicted for possession. So if all you had was a conviction on possession of marijuana, you will still have that as a felony on your record. So you go, North Dakota, you do you. John, what else would you consider? What else would you consider bad? Because that's all I have.
So, in looking through some of the exit poll results, exit poll numbers being reflective of the makeup of voters or opinions on Republican parties or whether you voted for Trump in the election in 2016, there are a ton of these exit poll numbers that have come out. And some of them that are not great are the factors like, did you vote in the election last year or last 2 years ago, 2016, the last presidential election, as well as some of the makeup of the voting bodies, or at least how they're split. So the way these work is there are percentages of certain factors or certain answers to a question, and then there are percentages of those percentages based on a certain party being either Democrat or Republican primarily. So for some of these, we'll just start with one that, since we were on the subject of diversity earlier, race and gender. White men and white women make up 35 and 37%, respectively, of the voting bodies for this midterm election, whereas black men and black women and Latino and men and women make up 5 and 6%, respectively, each. So a resounding 10% black and Latino men and 12% black and Latino women went out to vote for this midterm election, which isn't great, But at the same time, it's also kind of what we've seen in the past for votes in the more diverse categories. And obviously, that doesn't include all races and genders necessarily, but these exit polls can't be expected to be the most progressive things in the world. Now, of the black men and women and Latino men and women, unsurprisingly, the vast majority were Democratic in political leaning, with the black men being an 88% Democrat, 12% Republican, black women 92% Democrat, and 7%. 7? 8. What is this?
I don't know. I don't know what you're looking at.
Might be 1% that's an independent or undecided party, which honestly is fine with me. I myself am not of either political party, though I'm sure you can infer from our discussions throughout these podcasts which way I lean. So another interesting figure to take from this are the figures for not voting, which I found a bit odd because or I guess not odd, but disappointing, which I think is a pretty standard feeling about the amount of people who don't vote.
I cannot wait for this.
So what's interesting is, at least in terms of a midterm election, there aren't necessarily going to be as many people voting in a midterm election as there would be otherwise, because there's a little less writing on it in certain states, and not necessarily all the states are having midterm elections at the same time. And so I'm sure some of these statistics could be skewed by that. But for the amount of people who did not vote, there was what was it? It was a 8%, 8% of the total voting body did not vote. So that might seem like a small number in comparison to if you're on a voting yes or otherwise. But the interesting thing about this 8% is a whopping 78% of the people who did not vote were Democrats.
Sometimes people need to help themselves in order for others to help them.
Yeah.
And that's what I think when I see, I'm a Democrat and I didn't vote. And they also have some sort of nonsense reason about why they haven't voted. Because I think at this point, if you don't have your mind made up, you're just lazy. I mean, really, there's a degree of personal responsibility here. It's very easy to blame the, candidates, say stuff like, oh, I don't feel represented by this Democratic candidate or whatever. Okay, that's fine. But by not voting, you're just letting other people decide it for you. And the other people who are deciding it for you are voting for candidates like Ted Cruz, who will actively prevent anything you want from being done. And that's the person that's going to represent you because you didn't feel the Democratic candidate had positions that were good enough for you. So at this point, I can honestly say, if you don't have your mind made up, it's on you. We've never had such access to information in the history of elections, and for people to sit there and say they're not voting for various reasons blows my freaking mind.
I can tell one story of a coworker of mine who did not vote because he was not registered to vote because he didn't know how to register to vote and also did not seemingly care at all. He and I are about the same age, so in our age group, both you and I,
Mm-hmm.
and I found it odd that he's ethnic. I won't reveal too much about him, but he's not a white man like myself. But it surprised me that, I mean, we live in the area we live in is reasonably liberal, surrounded by, well, I wouldn't say reasonably liberal, I would say excessively liberal for my tastes, but surrounded by a fair amount of more conservative area in the county as a whole. But it surprises me that someone who, even though they may be a natural born, naturalized citizen, doesn't have a sense of civic duty about putting their vote in for a midterm election, a presidential election, anything. You know, it's it's a bit baffling to me personally, but
Oh yeah,
I
I
can
don't get it.
understand where you may not have all of the, an extensive understanding of politics or anything that would qualify you to run for Congress by any means. I'm not in that same boat. I wouldn't think that I would be successful as a congressperson.
I just think that by not voting this time around, that you're either saying Trumpism is okay with you, or you back Trumpism. One or the other. Because the Republican Party as we used to know it isn't a thing anymore. I mean, watching some of these candidates campaign, how they accepted the same thing that Trump says, some of them actually having Trump visit them themselves at rallies, using the same rhetoric, saying the same crap about immigration, using xenophobia to their advantage. Just, I don't get it. It's like I said before. That is what it is right now. We have a guy in the White House who's hell bent on just being able to do whatever he wants to, like he ran his business.
If you can call what he did running a business.
No, I mean he's a con artist. You and I know that, but people who
Yeah. I
and
don't think we're the only ones who have been made privy of that information. But
no, and I'm sure there are a lot of people who felt it firsthand. See Trump University and various contractors for his various properties, but these people have been suckered, and they'll be damned if they ever don't get out of their suckerage.
yeah, it's a it's just kind of unfortunate to see a lot of well-meaning conservatives who I have nothing against if you are a conservative individual, someone who is conservative politically or in ideology. It's a different viewpoint. That's fine. That's a good thing when it comes to having a balanced understanding of global politics and economies and everything in between. That's great. But when you start to turn toward the side of the Donald Trump, it's populism is what it comes down to. Populism, nationalism, things that are turning toward a darker side of humanity. I cannot condone any of that personally. So I'm going to fight you about getting better representation for those who may be less able to be represented in Congress as a whole.
The ugly.
Yep.
So that guy who got indicted for insider trading won.
Great.
That district is stupid. Very stupid. That baffles my mind. And then there's this story that really boggles the mind. You may have heard of this already. Dennis Hoff, who was running for Nevada's 36th Assembly District, that is on the state level, not national level,
Yep.
won his election over Democratic challenger Alessia Romanoff. Hoff owns a number of brothels and painted himself as a Trump-like populist. He called himself the Trump of Pahrump. Pahrump being a town west of Las Vegas on the California-Nevada border. Here's the thing. Hoff died on October 16th. And instead of replacing him, the Nevada Secretary of State kept him on the ballot. Since Hoff won, the county commissioners must appoint a Republican to take the seat until the next election. And why they didn't do that, I don't know. Beforehand, I don't know. This is one of the wackiest stories I've ever read about an American election on any level, national, state, local. Just the guy died. I don't know if there's another instance of this where someone has died on the campaign trail, but he won. People voted for a dead guy instead of the Democratic challenger. I mean, it's more that they voted just to give the county commissioners the ability to just point whoever as their representative, because they'll be a Republican no matter what. But it still just reads so odd, you know?
It's interesting to hear about that. that blows my mind, honestly.
Yeah.
Because it's not like he died the day of or like the day before or something. He died in October. Like mid-October.
I don't know. And Ron Jeremy found his body. Another interesting tidbit.
That's appropriate for who the guy was. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, what a guy. And what a state, Nevada.
He wrote an autobiography titled "The Art of the Pimp," and he's a white man.
Oh, but he is kind of a pimp. Anyway.
Yeah, technically, yes, but whatever. Not worth it.
So, in Florida, another unfortunate outcome. Andrew Gillum did not win the governorship in Florida. Instead, Ron, I'm not a racist. Racists just say I'm racist. DeSantis won.
DeRacist.
DeRacist. Ron DeRacist.
Yep.
And I put that in the ugly because it is ugly. He openly said racist things in the campaign trail. And like Andrew Gillum said in that debate, racist even thinks he's racist. It's the company you keep. And obviously, I think that's rather disturbing, you know. But then again, I mean, people voted for Donald Trump. You know, character does not matter as much to people now as it used to be, and as it should, you know. Anyway, Beto O'Rourke, as I said earlier, unfortunately lost to Ted Cruz. And
very ugly. Ted Cruz.
I don't know why. I looked at the demographic numbers. 71% of white male voters voted for Ted Cruz. And this number is the one I'm most pissed off at. 59% of white women voters voted for Ted Cruz. What the fuck is the matter with that state?
I mean, maybe they're into serial killers.
Ted Cruz never had any interest in being in the Senate. The year after he won the election in 2012, he began his campaign for president. He does not care about Texas. He just saw after his campaign failed how fruitful it was for him to be in the Senate and to be rich people's lapdog and spout all the lies right and left. Trump called him Lion Ted Cruz. When a pathological liar like Trump calls you a liar, that is not a compliment. It's like racist thing. Ron DeSantis is a racist. You probably are one because all these people think you are. And the people who voted for Ted Cruz are the exact kind of people who just cannot be helped. It's like they have a head and they don't realize they have a neck to turn their damn head. And if they do that, they would actually see, oh wow, these candidates are actually terrible and don't have my best interest at heart. But they don't. They have a very stiff, hard head. They got their hands on either side with their peripheral vision, and they can only look in one direction and can never ever see anything else beyond their field of vision. And
I feel like they may also not be able to tilt their heads backwards to look up at anything else promising. Or if they can, they look upwards and, not unlike turkeys, when it rains, will just hold their mouths open and drown.
Oh yeah, that is it. Wait, do they really?
Yep.
What?
Turkeys are dumb as shit.
What the hell? So in a way, we give them a much quicker death. By we'll just say putting them on the Thanksgiving table. A lot quicker death than drowning in rain.
Yeah. They were going to be our national bird at one point.
Right.
Glad that didn't happen.
No. But like I said, there's a degree of personal responsibility, okay? Candidates can't visit every person in a state, except maybe Wyoming or Maine. We had never had it so easy to look up candidates and their stances on issues. And if you honestly took an active look at candidates like Ted Cruz and thought, perfect, I don't know where else to go with you. Now, today got really ugly. During a press briefing, Trump went after multiple reporters. I think he was just in a sour mood because I think he realized his goose might be cooked.
Or his turkey in the case of Thanksgiving coming up.
I wouldn't be surprised if Trump tilted his head back and drowned in rain. I mean, remember that solar eclipse?
I wouldn't want to eat a turkey that orange.
Oh, jeez. But it got so ugly. Jim Acosta, who is a reporter for CNN, got most of the brunt of it. He tried to ask a follow-up question after Trump berated them for being fake news and stuff. And this person came up and took the microphone from him and gave it to another reporter. And the other reporter defended Jim Acosta's honor after Trump called him a terrible person who is very rude. And Acosta, in return, wasn't going to put up with that crap, and he quipped back at Trump. I don't remember what he said because it was kind of quiet. But I mean, good for that other reporter for standing up for him. Trump then told a black reporter that they were being racist, something along those lines. And that was just the beginning. He is mentally not stable, and I'm not saying that because of his politics. I'm saying I think there is some sort of mental health issue happening in his head, and it is slowly just getting worse. And then the big news in the afternoon, Jeff Sessions was told to resign, gave his letter of resignation to John Kelly. He's going to be out. This Whitaker guy is going to be, at least in the interim, the acting attorney general. Who knows who Trump is going to put in his place, but it's obvious to me the day after, hours after Democrats would take back the majority in the House, he's all ready to try to put a stop to Mueller because he knows that the sooner the better. And honestly, Robert Mueller is no dummy, I don't think he's been quiet this long because he doesn't have anything happening. So that's my hope, at least. Call me a wishful thinker.
We'll see. All
Yes.
of the evidence up till this point has been pointing towards something big mounting. So
He's acting very guilty too,
yeah,
and multiple times. Oh, the Russia investigation is a hoax. I have nothing to hide. Why won't you release your tax returns then? Oh, they're being audited. Just excuse after excuse. If it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a duck. If you act guilty, I think you're guilty. Then
if
again,
it floats like a duck, it's a witch.
it's a witch. It's a witch hunt
So
that has
so
produced many witches.
as a quick breaking news update, the White House, in reference to Jim Acosta's berating of Trump, quote unquote berating, his pass for the White House, or access to the White House, colloquially known as a hard pass, which is oddly named in my opinion,
Yeah.
but that has been revoked as of 9 o'clock, so 10 minutes ago.
Eastern time.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was quick. But
at some point, they're just going to stop interacting with the media altogether, I think. It'll just be like 2 Fox News reporters.
They're going to go full propaganda mode and just put everything out under official release through one news agency, probably Fox News. And I don't know. The whole combat with the press is a whole different ball of wax that we don't need to get into right now.
Aye.
Yeah.
Well, we can either call the episode here, or if you feel your little science topic is fairly short, let's hear it.
I think so. I think we should end on a somewhat positive note, maybe a little uplifting.
That sounds good. Let's hear it.
Pun fully intended for the that phrase. So, going back to Texas, land of the Zodiac Killer, NASA has begun tests for quiet, quote unquote quiet, sonic boom technology going on over the large state of Texas. Specifically, the the town of, oh, where is it? Good Lord. Dig in the article. Galveston. That's right. So, over Galveston, there are some testing grounds, and residents who live around these particular testing grounds will be surveyed for their feedback on the relative decibel levels of sonic booms that will be going on in the coming months, in preparation for test flights of one Lockheed Martin X-59 QSST, or Quiet Supersonic Transport Test Vehicle. This testing right now will be using FA-18 fighter jets that will be enacting dive maneuvers toward land that will produce a sonic boom that is quieter than a standard sonic boom.
How quiet can a sonic boom be, though?
Maybe have heard sonic boom before. It is on the order of, if we're going by decibel levels, normal sonic booms are around 110, 105 decibels. So, it's, if you've ever seen a video of a sonic boom or heard one yourself, it's loud. The takeoff decibel level for an aircraft, standard commercial aircraft, I think is around 130 decibels, somewhere around there. So a sonic boom is not much less than that, and is definitely noticeable even if the aircraft is at cruise altitude. So the ideal, or I guess maybe design point for these aircraft, the X-59 specifically, is closer to a 75 perceived decibel level, which is equivalent to closing a car door loudly, or shutting a car door with some emphasis, as it were. However, the aircraft, the X-59, is set to cruise at an expected cruise speed of Mach 1.42 or 1.5, and be at a cruising altitude of around 55,000 feet, which your standard aircraft passenger jet cruises around 30,000 some feet or 35,000, somewhere around there. Obviously, taking advantage of the thinner air at higher altitudes to lessen the heat loading and drag associated with flying at higher Mach speeds for general efficiency. So the actual tests, later tests of the X-59 are expected to begin in the early 2020s, 2021 for preliminary flights, and then 2022 for the actual overflights of Galveston to really test the capabilities of this supersonic, quiet supersonic technology.
Well, wow. It's feeling supersonic. Give that plane a gin and tonic.
We'll see. God. Gin and juice for those supersonic test pilots.
Woo!
Only the finest.
Well,
so
that about does it. Once again, we'll be saving the abiogenesis story for another week.
Yep. Science topics get pushed back, but
there's a lot to cover.
A shitload of midterms.
Yeah.
Going on.
It's not our fault. Okay.
Make accommodations.
We'll make up. I'll tell you what. We'll make up for it. If there's not much politics going on next week, we'll do all science. How about that?
That sounds like a plan to me.
Oh yeah, perfect. We need a title.
We do.
We could keep it simple and just go high quality midterms.
Yeah, but the midterms weren't really that high quality.
High
quality diversity.
High quality diversity.
High quality diverse midterms.
High quality midterm diversity.
That's reasonable.
All right, we're going to roll with that.
We'll go with it.
The file has been named. All right. With that, John, closing statements at all?
Get out and vote, you fucks.
It's a little late for that. But yeah, next year and the following year and every year after that.
Do it.
It's an honor.
For your own good.
There's countries out there where people don't have that ability. So be quite thankful. I'm Nick.
I'm John.
And you have yourselves a high quality week.